शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। अगजानन पद्मार्कं गजाननमहर्निशम् अनेकदन्तं भक्तानाम् एकदन्तमुपास्महे। श्रीमहागणपतये नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां पिशजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां श्रीहयग्रीवमुपास्महे। श्रीहयग्रीवमूर्तये नमः। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। श्रीमहासरस्वत्यै नमः। उमाकोमलहस्ताब्जसम्भावितललाटकं हिरण्यकुण्डलं वन्दे कुमारं पुष्करस्रजं। வெற்றிவேல் முருகனுக்கு ஹரஹரோஹரா. லோகவீரியம் மகாபூஜ்யம் சர்வரக்ஷாகரம் விபும் பார்வதி ஹிருதயானந்தம் சாஸ்தாரம் பிரணமாம்யகம். சுவாமியே சரணமையப்பா. வாகர்த்தாவிவ சம்பிருக்தௌ வாகர்த்த பிரதிபத்தயே ஜகதः பிதரௌ வந்தே பார்வதி பரமேஸ்வரௌ. ஸ்ரீ பார்வதி பரமேஸ்வராभ्यां நமः. कोमलं कूजयन् वेणुं श्यामलोऽयं कुमारकः वेदवेद्यं परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। पीताम्बरं करविराजितचक्रशङ्खकौमोदकी सरसिजं करुणासमुद्रं राधासहायम् अतिसुन्दरमन्दहासं वातालयेशम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। कृष्णो रक्षतु मां चराचरगुरुः कृष्णं नमस्ये सदा। कृष्णेनैव सुरक्षितोऽहमसकृत् कृष्णाय दत्तं मनः। कृष्णादेव समुद्भवो मम विभो कृष्णस्य दासोऽस्म्यहम्। कृष्णे भक्तिरचञ्चलास्तु भगवन्। हे कृष्ण तुभ्यं नमः। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं। नम्राणां सन्निधत्ते सततमपि पुरस्तैरनभ्यर्थितानपि अर्थान् कामानजस्रं वितरति परमानन्दसान्द्रां गतिं च। इत्थं निःशेषलभ्यो निरवधिकफलः पारिजातो हरे त्वं क्षुद्रं तं शक्रवाटी ध्रुममभिलषति व्यर्थमर्त्यव्रजोऽयम्। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं। श्रीभट्टपादम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। वंशी विभूषितकरात् नवनीरदाभात् पीताम्बरात् अरुणबिम्बफलादरोष्टात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखात् अरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परं किमपि तत्त्वमहं न जाने। കൈരണ്ടും കൂപ്പി ഞാൻ വീണ്ടുമീരക്കുന്നു നീരജലോചന നിന്നോടായി. ഏതീനു മഞ്ഞനെ കുമ്പിടേണ്ട തോറു രീതിയിൽ നീ എന്നെ പാലിക്കെന്നായി. കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ. Okay, good morning everyone. And thanks a lot for being here for the first session. I'm really looking forward to this wonderful journey with all of you. And like I was just telling, so we record all the classes so that way in case anyone is not able to join, we'll have the recording, and then I post it on YouTube after that, so you'll get access to it. I'm going to keep all of my conversations to English because there is a mix of people. We have people who speak Tamil, people who speak Telugu as well. So I'm going to stick to English. Okay. So like I put in the chat, what we'll do today is, since I don't know, a lot of people may not know each other, we'll just take very quick, we'll go through a round of introduction so you all get familiarized with yourself, because you're going to be meeting every week. So I want to make sure you all know each other in this journey, right? So I'm just going to go through who I'm looking from my camera view from left to right. Just take one, not more than 30 to 40 seconds. Introduce yourself, where you are from, because I know some people are from St. Louis, Dallas, and all that. So just give a quick round of introduction, as well as any connection you have. So some people might say, hey, I've already learned it when I was small, or I might have lost track of it, or my parents learn it. So say any connection you have to Narayaneeyam. If you want to say, you can say, otherwise it's okay. Just your name and location is okay. So I'll go from the top left. So Ram, you're the topmost left for me.
Hello, everybody. This is Ram, and this is Ramya. We both are in Buffalo Grove, and we stay very close to Rajesh here. And we are in one of his other Parayanam groups, and so we are actually late to the party here, but I'm so glad that we eventually joined.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My sister's family, I think they were a part of this, and that's one of inspiration for me. And also my mom, I've heard from my childhood days, she does chant Narayanam. So very blessed to be part of this group. Thank you.
Usha Garu, you are next.
Namaste, Rajesh Garu. My name is Usha. I'm in Chicago from Naperville. So I learned from you Vishnu Sahasranamam recently, and yeah, this is the first time I don't know about what is Narayaneeyam.
No worries. Vijaya Narayanan, you're next.
Namaste, everyone. I'm Vijaya Narayanan from St. Louis, Missouri, and I've been inspired from my friends, and my mother learns too back in India. And thank you for the opportunity.
I think we now have a big group from St. Louis already,
Yes.
from the previous session. So
Yes, very true. Yeah. I didn't want to miss this chance again. I have been getting it, and I thought I'm just going to take it up. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Shanti. Mute little, Shanti. Shanti, you're on mute.
Hi, my name is Shanti. I am from Toronto, Canada. Blessed to be a part of this group. I recently learned Vishnu Sahasranamam from Rajesh. It's so impressive and inspiring. My cousin had learned, he was a part of his group always, I suppose that's what he told me. The way he is chanting everything when he comes here, he wasn't like that before, as I knew him earlier. So I was very inspired, and I was asking him, where did you get all this from? Then he was mentioning about Rajesh, hence kind of I got connected, and I'm truly looking forward to this beautiful journey. Thank you.
Absolutely, Shanti. Padma Garu.
Namaste, Andy. This is Padma Kanigatti. I also know you from other classes, not Narayanam, Vishnu Sahasranamam and
Devi Mahatyam.
Lantas, yeah, Devi Mahatyam. And I heard you chanting in Hindu temple, beautiful Narayaneeyam. That's why I want to learn from you.
Thanks, Padma. Padma is joining from Cancun.
Thank you for helping me.
Padma is joining from Cancun today. So I'm glad you could join first class on your vacation. So.
Yeah, I don't want to miss the first class. That's why.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Sujata Garu.
Namaste. This is Sujata from Chicago, Naperville. So I just heard, this is first time with Rajesh Garu. I heard so many good things like Devi Mahatyam, and I tried to learn from you Devi Mahatyam, but I missed. So this is the first time, and I heard like few times Narayanam in YouTube. Like I love it so much. I tried without tune, but the first time I'm like learning with tune and everything. So hopefully I will get it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Sri Vidya.
Yeah, Namaste Rajeshji. I have seen my mom chanting Narayaneeyam. This is the first time I am going to be associated with you. My sister-in-law, my co-sister and my brother-in-law are already part of your family, and they are the one who referred me to here. Looking forward to my beautiful journey.
Absolutely.
And,
Sri
so much
Vidya,
bliss.
yeah, she's calling from Dallas. I think she's referring
Yeah,
to
I am from Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, Kannan and Sudha, for those who are familiar, who are part of the Narayaneeyam and Devi Mahatmyam group. Uma.
Uma, this is Uma from Dallas, and this is the first time I'm going to be part of this family, and this is going to be my first learning experience from you.
Matangi.
This is Matangi. I live in Green Oaks here in near Libertyville. I attended Rajesh's Vishnu Sahasram class, and then I asked him. My family, my dad used to take us to Guruvayur every single year and used to read Narayaneeyam. And we actually have a picture of Guruvayurappan blessed by Nambudri in our house back in Chennai. So that's why when I knew he was teaching, I wanted to learn, because dad used to say it every single day.
Absolutely. Very happy, Matangi, to have you. Sundari.
Yeah, hi, namaste everyone. I'm Sundari from Hamburg. Rajesh and I actually learned Devi Mahatmyam in the same batch. I started learning unofficially from Vyoma Sanskrit Pathasala, but lacked the discipline we need to have. So I'm really blessed to be part of this learning journey.
Thanks, Sundari. Sundari is right now in India, so I think she was having some video connectivity issues.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to connect video next week.
No worries. No, we can hear you clearly. Yeah. Vasanta.
Hello, Rajesh garu. I'm Vasanta from St. Louis, and I heard a lot about you with my friends in Chicago. So I'm very blessed to be part of this group, and that's it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for adding me.
Very much. Yeah. I think then I have Vijay Lakshmi. I think that is showing up as Viji.
Yeah. Namaskaram, sir. This is Vijay Lakshmi. I'm in Michigan, Troy. I'm very happy and blessed to be part of this group. Thank you so much.
Very much. Thank you. I hope I didn't miss anyone. I think we don't have two people who are on the line, Sita and Lata. Sita is also Chicago. Lata is also here locally. Did I miss anyone else? Then just speak up. Otherwise, we'll keep going. Okay. So what I thought I'll do today, right, is I'm going to share my screen and just walk you through a few things, because we're all used to sharing screens and sharing content. So I thought it'll be much easier to do it that way. So hopefully you're all able to see my screen. Let me just set this up. Okay. So, before at least anything in Hinduism, right, before you start, it's always important to know three things. One is, why was this thing written or composed? What is the context behind it, right? So because there's always a reason for somebody to spend time writing something or composing something, right? So you got to understand, why was it written? Number two is the background of the composer. Why should I listen to some particular person who has written this, right? Is there some, because if you go and tell something, are people going to listen? Probably, in some cases, in most cases not. So you have to have a certain level of authenticity, and you have to have a certain level of knowledge. So why should we listen to this composer? So background on that composer and why he went to compose this is also very important. So we'll spend some time on that. The third is something called as Thala Puranam, means the location where this was written. Why was it written in that location, right? So this was composed directly in Guruvayur, in the Guruvayurappan temple. So the question is, why was it composed there? And so that is also pretty important to understand. So these three things will give you an overall overview of what is Narayaneeyam, why Bhattatripad composed it, and why he composed it in Guruvayur. So we'll go through that about 15-20 minutes. I'll walk you through some stories. And then we'll come specifically to our class. What are we going to cover, and how we're going to go about it, right? So that's the kind of context for this session. So I'm not going to get into the details of the Mahabharata war itself. You all are very familiar with Mahabharata war and what happens at the very end. But the important thing here is, in terms of the Pandava lineage, right? So Arjuna gets married to Subhadra, Krishna and Balarama's sister. To Arjuna and Subhadra is a son called as Abhimanyu, and you all know about how Abhimanyu enters the Chakravyuh of the Mahabharata war, and he's killed there. He's not able to come out of it, right? So to Abhimanyu and Uttara, who's also to them is born a son called Parikshit. Now, there's a big story behind Parikshit itself, and you can see, right, before he was born, he actually saw Mahavishnu in the womb, right? So this was a child which was actually put to test before it was born. So there was a pariksha that was actually done to it. That is one reason why he's called Parikshit. The second reason he's called Parikshit is in the woman's womb is uncharted territory. Nobody can enter except the child, right? But this was the first time that another being or a living entity entered that womb, and then it was going around the child. So that child was looking around. Ikshita is to see. So because he was looking around to see who has entered, right? That's why his name was also called Parikshit. Either way, so this Parikshit is born, and of course he's blessed, because even before he is born, he is blessed by the Lord, right? And then he grew up, completely blessed by Krishna at the end of the Mahabharata period, right? So once all the Pandavas depart, this Parikshit then takes up the throne, and he is absolutely, because he comes from that lineage and also blessed, he does everything right. But however, time changes, right? When the period of Kali started, because Dwapara Yuga ended at that time when Krishna departed, and then the Kali Yuga started, things started going wrong, even for Parikshit. So one day, as he actually went hunting, and he went through several hours of hunting, and somehow he couldn't find anything. He couldn't find water. He was completely tired. He was around 60 years or something. So he went around, and because he couldn't find, he found a sage who was actually meditating in complete silence. So Parikshit goes to the sage and asks for water and everything, and the sage does not respond. So Parikshit, what he does is, just one span, a mistake he does is he finds a dead serpent which is actually lying next to the sage. So he takes a dead serpent and puts it around the sage's neck, because Parikshit is completely, disappointed that the sage does not respond. And Parikshit then ends up leaving. Now the sage, when he finally comes out of meditation, he doesn't say anything. But the sage has a son who's actually a very young boy, who is also extremely powerful. And this young boy comes and sees that this has happened. And the sage knew who has done it, right? The sage knew it was Parikshit who has put it. So, but however, the boy curses Parikshit, saying that because you insulted my father by putting a dead snake around his neck, 7th day from today, you're going to be bit by Takshaka, who is the king of snakes, and then you're going to die, right? So that is a curse that Parikshit actually gets. Now, however, this sage, being, very, he felt very bad that Parikshit is being cursed. So what the sage does is he sends a messenger to Parikshit and says, at least let him know that he's going to die, right? See, because it's one of the boons for Parikshit, right? Nobody here knows when we are going to die. But Parikshit was a person who knew when he's going to die. He knows he's going to die 7 days from now. So immediately the first thing we all do when we are going to die 7 days from now is we're going to tap into our bucket list and say, where are all the places we have not gone to? Which are all the food we have not eaten, right? What are all the things we need to do, right? That's what we do. But Parikshit thought, I've been given this blessing of knowing when I'm going to die. How do I put it to use, right? So then there enters this special character called as Shuka Brahman. So Shuka Brahman is the son of Veda Vyasa. So you all know Veda Vyasa very well. Veda Vyasa composed Mahabharata. That's what he's very well known for, right? But he actually composed another item before that. It is called as Srimad Bhagavatam. So the Srimad Bhagavat, actually Srimad Bhagavatam came later. So the story behind this is Veda Vyasa, he took the entire Vedas that was all there as one chunk, and then he actually compartmentalized those Vedas, right? Because he figured no human being in this Yuga, even in Dwapara Yuga, could actually read the entire Vedas. So he says, I have to compartmentalize the Vedas so people can pick one portion of the Vedas and read it or learn it, right? So he did that. Then he said, these Vedas are extremely complex, right? And it is all by memory, and only very specific section of people can learn it, right? There are a lot of restrictions. Women can't chant, or you have to be Brahmin, a lot of restrictions on Vedas. And so he said, you know what, I'm going to compose something for the masses. And then that's when he composed Mahabharata, where he said that can be read by anybody and everybody, right? Anybody can read Mahabharata, no restriction, a lot of life lessons in Mahabharata, everything is there. But he was still not happy. So one day when he was sitting and contemplating, then Narada comes, and imagine, like, you composed Vedas and compiled Vedas, composed Mahabharata, and still he's not happy. He felt like he's missing something, right? So when Narada came and said, what is missing in both of these is that devotion is missing in both of these aspects of it. So he says you have to compose something where it is complete devotion, bhakti margam towards Lord Narayana has to be composed. So that's when Veda Vyasa goes and compiles Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's one of the 18 Puranas. It's got 18,000 stanzas, right? So this Veda Vyasa then has a son, that is Parikshit. Shuka Brahman. And the Shuka Brahman is even more powerful than Veda Vyasa. So even when he was born with the Vedas. So he was even more talented. So what Veda Vyasa done is he imparts this knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam to Shuka Brahman. So now the Shuka Brahman is there, and Parikshit has 7 days left. So Parikshit says, what do I do? So Shuka Brahman says, don't worry. You give me 7 days undivided attention. No sleeping, no eating, no drinking, right? And then I will make sure you attain moksha. So that is where on the banks, along with a lot of the rishis, Shuka Brahman then imparts the knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit and several others who were actually present there, right? So that's a long story that goes. I won't get into the details of that. Now the problem with, or not the problem, the challenge with Srimad Bhagavatam is, one, it has got 12 skandhas, which has 332 chapters. So it's got 18,000 shlokas. So for those of you who have read through Devi Mahatmyam, I know a lot of people in this group know Devi Mahatmyam. Devi Mahatmyam has 700 stanzas, right? And Srimad Bhagavatam is 25 times the volume of Devi Mahatmyam, right? Just to give you the size of the scale of it, right? And it is extremely hard to learn and to read as well. So what happens is, when the Kali Yuga started, and a lot of people were not able to learn Srimad Bhagavatam because of the complexity of that. So that's when we then fast forward. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is right now there, right? So that's imparted to Parikshit, and he then attains liberation at the end of 7 days. And Srimad Bhagavatam talks about everything from how the universe was created to all the avatars, and it's got an entire, the biggest skandam, Dashama skandam is contributed to Krishna. It's got 90 chapters in it, all dedicated to Lord Krishna, right? So that was the overview of what Srimad Bhagavatam is happening. So now we kind of we fast forward, right, from 3300 BC, where Krishna passed away, when all this happened, to about 1560 AD, right? We're fast forwarding about 5,000 years here. So I'm going to chant one stanza, which was written by Bhattatripad himself, describing him, like part of his autobiography, right? So and then I'll explain the meaning of it. भूखण्डे केरलाख्ये सरितमिह नीलाम् उत्तरे नैव नावा क्षेत्रे गव्यूतिमात्रे पुनरुपरिणवघ्रामनाम्नि स्वधाम्नि धर्मिष्ठात् भट्टतन्त्रात् यकिलमतपटो मातृदत्तद्विजेन्द्रात् जातो नारायणाख्यो निरवहदतुलां देवनारायणाख्याम्. So it talks about the lineage of Bhattatri. So it says, this Bhattatripad was born in Bhukhanda, in the Khanda of this earth. This earth, he was born in Kerala. He was born in the region of Kerala, for those who are familiar with it, on the northern banks of Bharatapuzha river, in a place called Tirunavaya Divya Desham. It's a Divya Desham. It's a very religious place called Tirunavaya, multiple names against it. And in that, there's an Agraharam, a small community village called Melpattur. That's where he was born. He was born in 1560. So he was actually born to a family of Nambudris. So they were all very well versed in all the Vedas. And even by 16, he was a big scholar. And Bhattatri was a big Sanskrit scholar and also a strong mathematician. And we'll see some of those works of mathematics come as we even go through Narayaneeyam, right? So he was well versed in all of that. And he has done several commentaries, he has written several books, but he's primarily known for Narayaneeyam, but he's also done a lot of other things actually. So like everybody else, he passes through that age where he loses control, right? And then he starts going into he doesn't go into completely bad ways, I would say, but he gets distracted. And then then eventually he gets married, and then married at a young age. And one of his wife's head of family was an astrologer. His name was Achyuta Pisharati. So this Achyuta Pisharati was one day, he had laid out whatever was required for astrology. He had the Rasi Chakra laid out on the verandas, right, outside. And Bhattadripad, then supposedly he comes running and then he crosses over, he jumps over it, right, and crosses over, which you're not supposed to do because the Achyuta Pisharati is busy kind of laying out these chakras and everything. So at that time, he's then, his wand, and then knowledge then strikes, and then he then realizes, right, the amount of knowledge he already has, which he's not putting it to use. So he then decides to learn a lot of things from Achyuta Pisharati as a scholar. So all of that is happening. One day, what happens is eventually this Achyuta Pisharati then falls sick. Then he gets rheumatoid arthritis. His guru, Bhattadripad's guru, get rheumatoid arthritis. So Bhattadripad then says, what is the Guru Dakshina I can actually give to my guru, right? So by the yoga and mantra rupam, what he does is he takes on that rheumatoid arthritis onto himself. So his guru is then freed. So Bhattadripad now, at a very young age, probably around 20 years or whatever, he is then inflicted with rheumatoid arthritis. So he's then suffering. So he's such a huge scholar, he can't move his hands, he can't walk, right? So because of this, and it's a very severe case of it. So then he wonders what to do. Then someone tells him, you should go to Guruvayur. Now, why he is being told to go to Guruvayur to get himself cured, right? I'm going to give a background. So that is to talk about the Sthala Puranam of Guruvayur, right? So we'll go back, right, in story, like a movie, we'll kind of go back into, rewind here. So after Parikshit left the world, his son Janame Jayan took over the throne of the Kuru dynasty. So Janame Jayan comes to know that his father was actually bit by Takshaka, the snake, because of which his father died. So what he does is he performs a Sarpa Satra Yagam, because of which when the rishis chant those prayers, the snakes, wherever they are in the world, come and fall into the fire. And his goal was to get the Takshaka snake to fall into the fire. So then at that time, Astika Muni comes over and tells him that what you're doing is a big mistake. One, you cannot get Takshaka to come, number one. And two, you're killing so many innocent snakes because one snake bit your father. So he kind of puts some logic into it, and eventually Janame Jain agrees and he stops the Sarpa Satra Yagam. But because of all the snakes he has killed, right, by devouring them in fire, he then gets a big problem with his skin where his skin starts peeling. So he's now wondering what should he do. So then he's told that you go back in your lineage, and then you go back to when Krishna was completely guiding the Pandavas. That Krishna, when he departed from earth and he left Dwaraka, he had an idol, a Chaturbhujam, an idol with 4 hands, which was worshipped all the way from Brahma and then transferred through 3 generations of Krishna's, Lord Narayana's birth. One when he was born as Prishni Garbha, next when he was born as Vamana, and third as Krishna. And when Devaki and Vasudeva were worshipping that idol as well, it's been there for centuries, or probably multiple thousands of years. That idol, Krishna had told one of his friend Uddhava, who we'll see as we go through Narayaneeyam, to transfer that idol to a safe place when Dwaraka gets completely submerged underwater. So Krishna leaves, then Dwaraka gets submerged underwater, then Uddhava comes, and Uddhava then has this idol with him, right? And this idol is then transported by a combination of Guru and Vayu, because Guru Brihaspati was the Guru of Uddhava as well. So Guru and Vayu transport this to a place. Now, when they're flying, figuring out where to locate, which is the right place to put this idol, which has been worshipped for millions of years. So there they go to a place in the southern banks, Kerala, where Shiva and Parvati are also residing. And there's also a group, set of people called Prachetas who meditated there. And we'll go through all of that stories later on as well. So that is a place which is currently called as Guruvayur. So Guruvayur originally was called as Mammiyur because there's a Shiva Parvati temple there. But eventually nobody remembers Mammiyur. Everyone only remembers Guruvayur because it's become even more popular. So that's the place where they have established that idol. So Janame Jayan says, that is a place I have to go because that is the most powerful idol, right, which is there with so much energy. And so he goes there to cure himself of his skin infection. So again, everybody has a precedence, right? They're all thinking through what has happened. So no, Janame Jayan goes there because of that reason. Because Janame Jayan goes there, Bhattaripat says, you know what, I should go there, right? If Janame Jayan has got cured after killing thousands of snakes, I have not hurt anybody. I've got taken on this because of helping my guru. I should go there and I will get myself cured. So Bhattaripat goes to Guruvayur. That's how he ends up in Guruvayur, right? So he's sitting there in the Guru, and I don't know how many of you have been to Guruvayur, but now Guruvayur is completely different. It's got so many layers of protection, right? You can't enter that easily. But at that time, back in 1560, probably Bhattaripat was sitting right in front of Krishna at the Mandapam there. And so he's sitting there, he's not cured yet, he's wondering what to do. So one day, there was another person called Ramanuja Ezhutachan, another big Malayali poet who's coming. And Bhattaripat sends his people to say, ask him, how can I get cured? I'm sitting here in Guruvayur, I'm not getting cured. So he then tells one sentence. He says in Malayalam, he starts, Meen tottu kootuga, means start with the fish. And that could also mean start with eating the fish. It could mean anything you want. Meen is fish, and tottu means touch, and then kootuga is to consume. So you consume starting with the fish. So it could be also interpreted as eat fish. But then Bhattaripat knows that being Nambudri, he's not going to eat fish. So why would he say that? And then he realizes that what Ramanuja Ezhutachan is telling him is to start with the fish, start with the avatharams and go and describe everything else. So then Bhattaripat knew Bhagavatam. So he really literally takes Bhagavatam by his side. And what is there in 18,000 stanzas of Bhagavatam, he condenses that into 1,000 stanzas in Narayaneeyam. So that's really what Narayaneeyam is. It is nothing but a condensed version of Bhagavatam. So for people who cannot learn Bhagavatam, for whom Bhagavatam is extremely hard, he has composed Narayaneeyam, and every single story or context which has actually come from Narayaneeyam is from Bhagavatam, right? It's absolutely a replica of it. He's taken the core thing. If Bhagavatam has an entire, it's got like 10 stanzas describing something, Bhattaripat condenses that into one stanza. So that is really how he has done. Let me just jump to the next one. So if you, I just did a quick compilation, right? So the first 9 skandams of Bhagavatam are put into 36 chapters of Narayaneeyam. So chapters 1, Dasakams 1 to 36 is comprises 9 skandhas. The Dashama skandam, the 10th skandam of Bhagavatam, like we said, is all about Krishna. That is where Bhattaripat has spent most of Narayaneeyam. So the Dashakams 37 through 88 is everything related to Krishna Avatar. And then beyond from that, 89 to 97 talks about a lot of the philosophical stuff and how to attain enlightenment, liberation, all of that stuff that comes in the later stanzas, right? So that is how Narayaneeyam is laid out across the, and we call it a Dashakam. A Dashakam typically means 10 stanzas. That's what Dashakam means, but it's not exact. As you can see, there are 1036 stanzas, right? It's not evenly divided as 10. Some of them may have 11, 12, 13. One of them has 9. It's a general idea. So at the end of every chapter, Bhattaripat requests, he condenses that chapter. So the first, let's say there are 10 stanzas, 9 stanzas he tells about something. In the 10th stanza, he condenses all the 9 stanzas and says, for example, you who was born as Narasimha to help Prahlada get rid of Hiranyakashipu, please eliminate my disease. And please remove my sins. Please eliminate all the diseases and problems I'm having. Every stanza, every Dashakam ends with that request at the very end, right? I think there's only 1 or 2 Dashakams where he doesn't say it. So when we go through it, we'll see why that is. But pretty much everything he does that, right? And this is completely around Bhakti Yoga, right? All of you know the Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. people who are interested in jnana yoga, then you have to really go and learn, the meditation, contemplation. It talks about all of that also in Narayaneeyam, but the primary emphasis of Narayaneeyam is all around bhakti yoga. And there are some amazing examples in Narayaneeyam, which again all comes from Bhagavatam only, because Bhagavatam itself was composed to increase devotion, right? So at the end of Narayaneeyam, the goal is you should feel more attached towards Krishna. So I tell people, you measure your love to Krishna right now, right? Whatever number in a scale of 1 to 100. And then you see what your love to Krishna is at the end of Narayaneeyam after you finish learning 100 chapters. And the goal is it should have progressed, right? And at least every single person who has gone through this journey has said, Krishna is now my favorite God, right? Not that I want you to take any sides, but I'm just, giving you as an example, right? So that is the kind of thing you go through. So what we'll also cover, so in this case, right? So he was cured on the 100th day. So he first starts with the greatness of Guru Ayappan in first chapter, because before you start reading, you have to say, why is Guru Ayappan great, right? That's what he starts with in the first chapter. And in the 100th chapter, where he gets a vision of the Lord, so he describes the Lord from Keshati Pada Varnanam, all the way from Kesha, all the way from the hair to the Pada, to the foot of the Lord, as he sees the Lord in front of him in Guruvayur, right? So that is a description of the Lord which comes in the 100th chapter, 100th Dasakam. And the most important thing about Narayaneeyam compared to any other thing is it addressed in first person. So it doesn't say Krishna went and did this. It says you went and did this. So for people who are familiar with Sanskrit, the word tvam will keep coming a lot. Tvam and twam, right? Which is referring to you. You are doing something, right? So it always is you. And the you comes even in Ramavataram, and we'll see that, right? How even in Ramavataram it comes as you. So that is the interesting part of this, right? It's addressed directly in first person to the Lord, and that's how even we will also be learning it. So like I've told most of you, because even this, while they Bhattaripad composed Narayaneeyam saying Bhagavatam is hard, but even Narayaneeyam is hard for everybody, right? So it's got 100 chapters and it is in, chase Sanskrit. So a lot of people find it hard as well. So that's why I've kind of broken it down into 3 sessions, right? So that you can also kind of get a flavor of it as well, right? So for people who want to just get started, say, I just want to learn through the first important 20 chapters, 20 Dasakams, which has all the avatharams, which we'll cover in the first session. Along with, I'll also teach you Narayana Kavacham at the end of it as well from Bhagavatam. So that will be the first session. Then the second session, we'll focus on everything related to Krishna, which is about 29 Dasakams, picked 29 Dasakams. And then people who are staying, is all. And I think a lot of you came because someone else is learning, right? In St. Louis or in Dallas, etc. And people are all in various stages. Majority of people have continued through the entire journey because everyone feels it hard in the beginning. So I will say that upfront. So even when we do Dashakam 1 today, if you all find it hard, it's absolutely fine. You can go call your friends who have learned it and they've all found it hard. But now you go, and for those who came to the Parayanam at the Grace Lake Temple, we did about 3 Parayanams last year, in 2022 actually. We even did a Sampurna Narayanam, 100 Dasakam Parayanam, right? People were chanting it at such pace, it was just unbelievable. They were going so fast, right? So because eventually you'll get used to it. I think Shanti was talking about her cousin Ramesh. I know how Ramesh was when he started, right? He was finding it struggling to read that first chapter, right? But now you should see him chant, right? It's very fluent. That's how everybody, again, like anything else, you'll get used to it. So I'll kind of give that as a warning that you will find it hard in the beginning. And some chapters are 4-liners, which is like the first chapter. Those are hard. Then there are some chapters like chapter 12, which we'll do next, which are like 2-liners. So those are relatively easy. So this is our class. So I'll pause here. Any questions so far on Narayaneeyam or why it was composed or about Sthala Puranam or Bhattaripad? And then we'll jump into our class and what we are going to cover. Okay. So in terms of what we are going to cover, I've already sent you all the list, right? So we will typically do about 1 Dashakam per class. Sometimes we'll do little more than 1 because we're going to learn it with meaning. So every stanza, I'm going to tell you the meaning of it so you understand it. And then we will have 2 review sessions in between. So we have about 20. So when we do 10, I will have a review session. Then when we do 15, we'll have another review session. Then when we finish 21, we'll then have a Parayanam of the 21 Dasakams that we've actually done. And like I already said, every class will be recorded. So whatever we are speaking now, I'll record it, put it on YouTube. And at the end of every Dashakam, I will also send you an MP3 of the chapter alone, of just me saying that chapter, so you can also practice with it. And like I've also said, as much as possible, especially when I'm picking you as a student, try to be on video, right? Otherwise, it'll look like I'm talking to a blank wall. So that is one. And then every class, I will try to pick 6 students. So 2 students I will pick at random, who I will tell you to chant what we learned in the previous class. So if let's say we learned Dashakam 1 today, next class, I expect everybody to practice it. That's the only thing I'm requesting out of you is practice, because otherwise it's going to get very hard once we learn more chapters. So I will pick 2 students at random. I'll tell you to chant the previous chapter, and there's no pressure. If you make mistakes, I'll keep correcting it any number of times you want. So I'm not going to be pained by that at all. So don't think that I'm going to feel bad about it. And then first half of the class, I'll pick 2 students. Second half, I'll pick 2 other students. And then you'll have to repeat it twice. Each one repeats twice after me. So let's say I pick Shanti, and then the Shanti repeats twice. Then I pick Ram, Ram repeats twice, right? That's kind of how we will do it. That way you'll repeat it 4 times, everything. And I strongly recommend you have a paper copy, either a book or a paper copy, because I'm going to tell you in every stanza where to break it, where to join it, where to make some edits. And it is extremely important, because what happened is, we have seen in the past, people don't do it, and later on they realize that they missed doing it, and then it becomes very hard, right? So it's extremely important that you make those markings, because otherwise it's going to become very hard. So that is extremely important. So always do that. And I understand, a lot of times you may not be able to come to a class, so just that's perfectly fine. Just let me know ahead of time that you are not coming. That way I don't have you planned as a student, right? And we'll give the chance to somebody else. So that is kind of what I wanted to cover. So any other questions? Otherwise, we can get started. No questions from anyone? Okay. So
I have a question, sorry.
Yeah.
It was pretty interesting to know that the story, you said he was jumping on something, and then that's when he knew he had capabilities.
Yeah, no, he had already learned it. He had already learned a lot of things, right? But he had already learned a lot of things. So sometimes what happens is, you make a mistake in life and somebody warns you and says, why are you wasting your time, and sits and gives you an advice, right? And so he has already learned it, then he goes out of way, right? He didn't waste time doing other things. Then incident happens. It's a trigger, right? An incident trigger happens, which makes Achyuta Bishradi sit with him and give him a lecture, right? And that then changes his mindset, saying, you know what, okay, I now come to a realization. So it's not like he jumped and all of a sudden it changed, right? He was already very knowledgeable. He had already had all the knowledge, but he had got distracted and went into different ways. And this was a trigger event which kind of got him back into the right path. Okay. All right. So we'll start with the first Dashakam, right? So today I won't pick. I'll have 2 people who want to volunteer. Okay, I see Ram and then Shanti. Okay, so we'll start with Ram and Shanti. So the way I will do it is, if it is 4-liners, like the first Dashakam is 4-liners, right? I will first say the 4-liner. I will then tell you the meaning of the 4-liner. Then we will take it 2 lines at a time. So the first 2 lines, I will tell you how to break it, how to chant it. Then I will say the 2-liner. Then in this case, Ram, you repeat it twice. Then Shanti, you repeat it twice. Then we'll go to the 3rd and 4th line. And you'll realize it as we go through it, right? So, Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha Sandhanandhavabodhatmakamanupamitam Kaladeshavadebhyam Nirmuktam Nityamuktam Nigamashatasahasrena Nirbhasyamanam Aspashtam Drishtamatre Punarurupurushartatmakam Brahmatattvam Tattavad Bhadi Sakshat Guru Pavanapure Hanta Bhagyam Jananam. So the first stanza itself, and this is a stanza, this is the first stanza we normally also say at the end of every day, every Parayanam we do, right? We also chant this first one, because it is such an important one, because it says, we all have heard about Brahman, right? Everybody, talks about there's no individual God. It's all just Brahman, right? It's all just one. There's no shape. There's no form, all of that. Now, what is that Brahman? So it starts off by saying this Brahman is nothing but it is like, you can think of it as the supreme consciousness of everything in this world. It's all the consciousness of everybody put together as one, and it is always in a state of intense bliss, because when this word keeps coming, right, Sandrananda, that word will keep coming. It comes in the 37th chapter, which is the beginning of Krishna Avataram, and it also comes in the 100th chapter also. So which, like, you all know the difference, right? Happiness is something that is momentary, bliss is something which is permanent. So it is always in the state of highest state of energy of happiness, and it is a supreme consciousness which is actually there. And then they say, but how do you describe the attributes? How do you describe what the Brahman is? So here he goes on to describe the various attributes of the Brahman. One will say, when he says is, it's anupamitam. It cannot be compared to anything. Number one, there's nothing I can say this is like a tree or this is like a horse. I cannot compare because there's nothing else it can be compared to. And it is not bound by time and space. So right now I am saying I am sitting here in Buffalo Grove today. Tomorrow I might be sitting somewhere else. So whatever I am doing, I'm stuck to a point in space, and also stuck to a point in time. It's 8:18 my time right now, and I'm doing this. So I'm stuck to a point in time, I'm stuck to a point in space. But this Brahman, whatever people are talking about, is not bound by time and space. It is there across the entire space. It's across all time. It's not bound by that. And Nitya Muktam, we all are bound by Maya and constraint. We know that, people talk about, and I'm going to talk abstract first, and then I'm going to bring it back to, something we can understand. So we all talk about, everyone says everything is an illusion, everything is a Maya, right? We are all doing things, okay, but how do you grasp it? But it says whatever that Maya is, whatever that illusion is, this Brahman that is there cannot be bound by it. That is the one thing which is sitting outside of the entire Maya, and it's not bound by it. Because if it is bound by it, it becomes one of us, right? It is not one of us. So it is not bound by this Maya. That's why it's always free. And then Nigama Shata Sahasrena. So Nigama is referring to Vedas. Shatam is 100, Sahasra is 1,000. So hundreds and thousands of things in Vedas have tried to describe this Brahman in various ways. So even for those who know Purusha Suktam, it starts with Sahasra Shirsha Purushaha. It starts with it. They all try to describe this Purusha and this Brahman in various ways. And no matter how many times they try to describe, it says it's aspashtam. It is just not clear to anybody what this Brahman is, right? It's not comprehensible, right? No matter it's described in all these Vedas in any number of forms, none of us can actually grasp what this Brahman is. But however, it says, when you realize it, when you realize what that Brahman is, whenever that happens, whatever that Brahman is, when you realize it, he says, then it gives to you the Uru Purushartmakam, the highest. You have Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. You have all the things. It gives you the highest of it, which is the liberation. On realizing this Brahman, whenever you realize it, you then get the ultimate reward, which is the liberation. So, but Bhattacharya says, when things are so complicated, right? I don't understand why Hanta is like alas, it's like exclamation, right? When the Brahman itself is Sakshat Guru Pavanapure. Guru Pavanapure is referring to Guru Vayu, because that word will come in multiple places. So Guru Pavana is Vayu, Pure is a location. So Guru Pavanapure is Guru Vayu. So he says that Brahman itself, because it's not a he or a she, right? The Brahman itself is standing right in front of me in Guruvayur as Guruvayurappan. Why are people worried about trying to understand Brahman? Right? It's a bhagyam to Jananam. It's a bhagyam to the entire world that Brahman is standing here. She says, why are you worrying about trying to understand that Brahman? You just come here, you come to Guruvayur. I am looking at it right now in front of me. That is that Brahman, who is given a shape and a form, and is given and we'll go through more of that in this chapter as well. It's given a shape and a form, so you and I can relate to it, right? So that's how it starts with, right? Saying the glory of the Lord. So Bhagavan Mahimanu Varnanam. So why it is important is, this is the way you will get to realize Brahman, and this is the way you will get to liberation, is by doing this, because that is that Brahman which is standing in front of me. So that's how he starts with. So now in terms of how we're going to chant this, right? So the first, so for those who are familiar with Sanskrit, right, there is this thing called as sandhis, which are joining words. So wherever possible, I will tell you where to break it. Okay, but it's up to you whether you want to break it or you want to say it together, because different people have different preferences, right? So I'm going to tell you where you have to say the entire word. I will tell you, you can't break it because of the sandhi rules. You cannot break it, so you kind of have to say the whole thing together. So here, Sandra Nandhava Bhodatmakam. Up to that, you have to pretty much say it together. And then if you want, you can break it into Anupamitam, or you can say the whole thing. Sandra Nandhava Bhodatmakam Anupamitam. And then put a comma. So when I say put a comma, you have to pause there. And the pausing we'll do for a couple of reasons. One is because you cannot say the whole 2 lines together, right? There are people who, my grandfather used to do that. He used to just say the whole thing together as one sentence, right? But we are not that expert to be able to say that. So we have to find a place to stop so we can take a breath. So when you're taking a place to stop, you have to stop at the right place. So that's why that comma is put, number 1. And number 2 is, in some cases, you'll see we put a plus and comma in different places because it will change the meaning if you say it together in some cases. That is number 2. And number 3 is when we all 100 of us meet and we all chant Narayaneeyam, and if each of us ends up saying it differently, then you're going to be out of sync. So that's why it's very important that when I say put a comma, you put a comma there and you have to pause there. Okay, that way we are all consistent. Okay, so Sandra Nandava Bhodatmakam Anupamitam, comma, Kala Desha Vadibhyam. So when I say it Kala and I'm giving a brief pause, so for people who want, if you want, people put a marking there, so to say that's a separate word, so you can break that long word, because you'll see a lot of long words here. Okay, so Kala Desha Vadibhyam, comma, Nirmuktam Nitya Muktam, comma, Nigama Shata Sahasrena Nirbhasyamanam. So we'll do these 2 lines. Sandranandavabodhatmakamanupamitam kaladeshavadebhyam nirmuktam nityamuktam nigamashata sahasrena nirbhasyamanam.
Can I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Sandranandavabodhatmakam anupamitam kaladeshavadibhyam nirmuktam nityamuktam nigama shatasahasrena nirbhasyamanam. Sandranandavabodhatmakam anupamitam kaladeshavadibhyam nirmuktam nityamuktam nigama shatasahasrena nirbhasyamanam.
Santranandavabodhatmakam anubhamitam kaladeshavadibhyam nirbhuktam nityamuktam nigama sadasahasrena nirbhasyamanam.
On the first line, Shanti, so Bodhatmakam Anupamitam, although you're breaking into Im and Anupamitam, you don't have to pause there. You kind of say the whole thing together. Otherwise, you'll go out of tune.
Santranandavabodhatmakam anubhamitam kaladeshavadibhyam nirmuktam nityamuktam nigama sadasahasrena nirbhasyamanam.
Aspashtam Drishta Matre, comma, Punaruru Purushart Atmakam. But those are the words, but you can't quite break it that way because it's written as one word. So you kind of have to say Punaruru Purushart Atmakam Brahma Tattvam, comma, Tattavat Bhati Sakshad Guru Pavana Pure, comma, Hanta, another comma, because it's like an exclamation, right? So you're pausing before and after that Hanta, comma, Bhagyam Jananam. Aspashtam Drishtamatre Punaruru Purushartatmakam Brahma Tattvam Tattavad Bhati Sakshad Guru Pavana Pure Hanta Bhagyam Jananam.
Aspashtam drishtamatre पुनरुरुपुरुषात्मकं ब्रह्मतत्त्वं तत्तावद्भाति साक्षात् गुरुपवनपुरे हन्त भाग्यं जनानाम्.
And the hanta kaparam is a pause. Hanta bhag.
अस्पष्टं दृष्टमात्रे पुनरुरुपुरुषार्थात्मकं ब्रह्मतत्त्वं तत्तावद्भाति साक्षात् गुरुपवनपुरे हन्त भाग्यं जनानाम्.
अस्य पष्टं दृष्टमात्रे पुनरुरुपुरुषार्थात्मकं पुरुषार्थात्मकं ब्रह्मतत्त्वं तत्त्वात्पादिसाक्षात् गुरुभवनपुरे हन्त भाग्यं जनानाम्.
Shanti, and the first third line after drishta matre there is a comma. Okay. Aspashtam drishta matre, and then there is a comma. Yeah.
Astapashtam dristamatre.
Oh, sorry. Aspashtam.
No, sorry. Yeah. Aspashtam dristamatre punarurupurusharthatmagam brahmatattvam tattavat padishakshat guru pavanapure hanta bhagyam jananam.
And don't worry about making mistakes, please. You know, it's absolutely okay for those who have learned other things from me. You can keep making hundreds of mistakes. I'll keep fixing it. So no worries about that. Okay. Stanza 2. Evam durlabhya vastunyapi sulabhataya hastalabdhe yadanyate tanva vachadiya va bhajati batajanah kshudrataiva sphutehyam ete tavatvayam tu stiratara manasa vishwapidhapahatyai nisheshatmanamenam guru pavanapuradishameva ashrayamaha. So he says, like this Brahman, which I described to you in such, Sakshat is standing in front of me. You know, like we always say to our kids, right? That, you know, nowadays you guys have access to all this information. We didn't have it. We had to struggle and you still are wasting your time. You're not putting it to use. So we say that on multiple things. That's really what Bhatripad is also saying, right? Saying something which is so durlabhya, it's so difficult to get, right? The vastu, that item which is so difficult to get, it is as if available in your hand. Hasta labde, I'm giving it to you literally in a platter in your hand, right? Saying it is right here in front of you. Guru Arpan is standing here. That is the one, right? But still, no matter, he says, no matter this is available like this so easily, people are not making use of it. And what do? Through tanva, through their body, vacha, through their speech, and dhiya, through their mind. Instead of praying, bhajati, instead of praying this, they waste their time on all other aspects of it. So this is no use of this vastu being available so easily if one is not putting it to use. So that's what he's saying. I'm telling you, this is available here. So take your mind, body, and senses and everything and put it in towards this direction. Otherwise, he's saying you're wasting what is already available. However, he says, whoever is thirathara manasa, with their mind which is completely firmly dedicated towards this vastu that he is talking about, when they are focused, right? Like he says, all these devotees, and he's kind of, because whoever is reading Narayaneeyam by default, he says has already become a devotee. So he says all of us, that's kind of how he says, all of us, he says, who are sthiratara manasa, who are working towards this, will become Vishwapida Pahatya. They will get eradicated of all the sins and the diseases and everything that they actually have. And that is how, by doing this, you have to surrender, ashrayamaha. You have to completely surrender to this Lord and he will take care of all the problems and everything. That's what he's saying here. So, evam durlabhya vastunyapi, comma, sulabhataya hasta labdhe yadanyat, comma after that. Tanva vacha dhiya va bhajati bata janaha, and then a comma, kshudrataiva sphuteyam. Evam durlabhya vastunyapi sulabhataya hastalabdhe yadanyate tanva vacha dhiya va bhajati bata janaha Kshudrataiva Sputeyam.
एवं दुर्लभ्य वस्तुन्यपि सुलभतया हस्तलब्धे यदन्यत् तन्वा वाचा धिया वा भजति बत जन क्षुद्रतैव स्फुटेयम्.
Ram, and the Janaha, there's a Visarga there, Janaha.
Janaha, okay.
Yeah, so just for one other comment for everybody's benefit. So maybe most of you are already familiar with it, but I'll just say it for the benefit. So when the Visarga comes, which is the two dots in Sanskrit, I don't know in your text how it is coming, right? So there are two ways. One, if you're stopping after that, then you have to say that Visarga, like in this case, Janaha, you have to say that. There are many cases, what we will do is we will not stop there and we'll continue. And when we're continuing, I'll tell you what is a joining letter to be used. Okay. So especially, but the one exception always is when ksha is coming, like kshudrataiva, that ksha is coming, you always have to say the visarga in front. Okay. So those are the three criterias. If we stop, we say the visarga. If ksha is coming after that, we're going to say the visarga. If neither of this situation is happening and we're continuing, I will tell you what the joining letter is. You add it to your text and then you say it continuously with that text, with that letter. Okay. You go ahead, Ram, second line.
Evam durlabhya vastunyapि sulabhataya hastalabdhe yadanyat tanva vacha dhiya va bhajati bhata janah kshudrataiva sputeyam.
एवं दुर्लभ्य वस्तुन्यपि सुलभदया हस्तलब्धे यदन्यत् तन्वा वाचा धिया वा भजति पदजनः शूद्रदैव स्फुटेयम्. एवं दुर्लभ्य वस्तुन्यपि सुलभदया हस्तलब्धे. Should I break there?
No, you see it continuously. Hastalabdhe.
Hastalabdhe yadanyat tanva vacha dhiya va bhajati pada janah shudradaiva sputeyam.
Ete thavadvayam tu, comma, stira tara manasa vishwa pida pahatye, comma, Nisheshatmanamenam, that is one word. It's Nishesha Atmanamenam, two words, but it is combined together, so you can't break it. Nisheshatmanamenam Guru Pavana Puradishameva. So in most of the books you will have Guru Pavana Puradishamevashrayamaha as one word, right? So we're going to break that there. We're going to say Guru Pavana Puradishameva, and then put a comma. And then the next word is ashrayamaha. We're going to say that word separately. If you have any doubt when I'm saying something, please ask. Right? Ethe tavatvayam tu stirathara manasa vishwapidha pahatye nisheshatmanamenam guru pavana puradishameva ashrayamaha.
Ete tavadvayam tu stiratara manasa vishwapīdāpahatyai nisheshatmanamenam gurupavana puradisham evamaha.
Ram, andratla Guru Pavana Puradishameva, one flow.
Guru Pavana Puradishameva Ashrayamaha. Ete tavadvayam tu stiratara manasa vishwapīdāpahatyai nisheshatmanamenam Guru Pavana Puradishameva Ashrayamaha.
Ete tavat tu stirathara manasa vishwapidha bahatyai nisheshatmanamenam guru pavana puradishameva asrayamaha. Ete tavat tu stiratara manasa vishwapidha bhagatyai nisheshatmanamenam guru pavana puradishameva asrayamaha.
So I think the third line after Tavad Vayam Tu, there is a comma there.
Third.
Like Ethe Tavad Vayam Tu, and then a comma. Okay. Stanza 3. And I'll keep saying this only because the first batch, when always the first 10 chapters that we learn, people don't put the right markings, because first of all, people don't put it, and then you don't realize the value of it. And then the first batch, after they completed 100, then they said, you know what, we want to do a review of all the chapters, right? And the first few sessions, what they learned, everybody had wrong places markings, because nobody was paying, they didn't realize the importance of that markings. So we literally had to go stanza by stanza again, or they had to go look at the recording to see where that break was happening, right? So that's why I'm saying, so when I say comma, at least even if you don't pause it, make sure you put the comma, because then later on you'll remember to put it, right? Use it. Stanza 3. Satvam yattat parabhyam aparikalanato nirmalam tena tavat bhutair bhutendriyaiste vapuruti bahushah shruyate vyasavakyam tatsvachatvat yadachadita parasukachet garbha nirbhasa rupam tasmin dhanyaramante shrutimati madure sugrahe vigrahete. So he says, of the everybody, right? We have all this mix of the three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas gunas, that are all mixed, and we're going to see more about that in chapter 15, Dasakam 15. So he says, but this form of yours that is there, he says, it's pure sattva guna. It doesn't have even a taint of rajas or tamas, because even Brahma, when Brahma is first created, right, and you'll see all of that in the later chapters, when first he comes with pure sattva, but then if you have pure sattva, then you will not have any intent to do anything. You will not want to, you will not have a desire, right? So he had to have a little bit of tamas and everything added to Brahma, so that Brahma will want to create, right? So and then, but he says, but your form here is pure sattva, and that's why, this is Sanpe Vyasa Vakyam. He says, I am not saying this. Vyasa himself has said how you are not tainted at all. And because it is pure sattva guna, it is the supreme consciousness into which everything is merging, and that's the reason you're shining so much, because it's pure bliss. Because you have no taint, you have nirmalam, right? There's no taint at all. It is completely pure. And then he says, that is why I want to resort to worshipping this. And in the 99th chapter, last stanza, Bhattaripad again goes on to describe this Brahman in detail, and he says, while I can talk about it, he says, even I cannot comprehend it, right? And this is Bhattaripad saying, he says, even I cannot comprehend it. So he says, I am going to resort to worshipping, I'm going to resort to idol worship of you in this form that you are there in Guruvayur, right? Which is kind of what he's saying here, is this form of yours is like the waves on an ocean. You can't separate the waves from the ocean. It is part of the ocean, but you can see the waves very clearly, right? It's just that's how your idol is. This form of yours is the pure sattva guna. It is part of the Brahman, but I can see this, but I cannot see the Brahman. He says that to that form of yours, I'm going to Shruti Mati Madhure. I'm going to be, happily singing and praising you, and then, be happy with that. Tattvam yattat parabhyam. So the ma that is there, you're going to break it, put a im, and then put a comma. Parabhyam. Next word starts with a a. So apari kalanato nirmalam tena tavat, comma, bhutair bhutendriyaiste. So you can remember the word bhuta and indriya. Those are the words in there. So bhutendriyaiste vapuriti bahushaha, and then put a comma, shruyate vyasa vakyam. Satvam yattat parabhyam aparikalanato nirmalam tena tavat bhutair bhutendriyaiste vapuriti bahushah shruyate vyasa vakyam.
Sattvam yattat parabhyam aparikalanato nirmalam tena tavat bhutair bhutendriyaiste vapuriti bahushah shruyate vyasa vakyam. Sattvam yattat parabhyam अपरिकलनतो निर्मलं तेन तावत् भूतैर्भूतेन्द्रियैस्ते वपुरिति बहुशः श्रूयते व्यासवाक्यम्.
सत्वं यत्तत्पराभ्याम् अपरिकलनतो निर्मलं तेन तावत् भूतैर्भूतेन्द्रियैस्ते वपुरुति बहुशः श्रूयते व्यासवाक्यम्.
Ashwani, the second line, Vapuriti. Second line, Vapuriti Bahushaha.
Okay. Sattvam yattৎपराभ्याम् अपरिकलनतो निर्मलं तेन दावत् भूतैर्भूतेन्द्रियस्य ते वपुरुति बहुशः श्रूयते व्यासवाक्यम्.
And the second line, first word, Bhutair Bhutendriyaiste. You want to try that word again?
Bhutendriyaiste.
Yeah.
Vapuruti. Okay. Bhutendriyaste.
Tat Swachatvat. So if you will have a dhya, dhya, dhya. So we're going to break it into it and a ya. So tat Swachatvat it. You put a comma. Next word starts with a ya. Yadachadita para sukha chit garbha nirbhasa rupam. Okay, so the words are easily separatable, but you say that together. Yadachadita para sukha chit garbha nirbhasa rupam, comma. Tasmin dhanya ramante, comma. Shruti mati madure sugrahe vigrahe te. Tat swachatvat yadachadita para sukha chit garbha nirbhasa rupam. Tasmin dhanya ramante Shrutimati madure sugrahe vigrahe te.
Tat swachatvat yatachya jatita parasukha chidgarbha nirbhasa rupam tasmin dhanyaramante shrutimati madhure sugrahe vigrahe te. Tat swachatvat yatya.
The vat kapra you put a comma. Stop. Tat swachatvat.
Tat swachatvat yatachadita parasukha chidgarbha nirbhasa rupam tasmin dhanyaramante shrutimati madhure sugrahe vigrahe te.
Tatvachatvat yatachadita parasukha chidgarbha nirbhasvarupam tasmin dhanyaramante smriti mati mathure sugrahe vigrahe te.
Last line, Shruti mati madure. Last line.
Shruti mati madure. Tatvachatvat yatachadita parasukha chidgarbha nirbhasvarupam tasmin dhanyaramante shrutimati mature sugreha vigrehate.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Shugrahe vigrahete.
Yeah. Stanza 4. We'll probably stop after this today. Nishkampe nityapurne niravadi paramananda piyusha rupe nirlinaneka mukta vali subhagatame nirmala brahma sindhau kalho lolasatulyam khalu vimalataram sattwamahusthadatma kasmano nishkalastvam sakala iti vachah tvatkala sweva bhuman. So again, he keeps comparing, and that's what you will see Bhattaripada, because he's a poet, he always uses comparisons a lot, right? So he's again going to that concept of the ocean itself and saying, like the ocean, Brahman, you as Brahman is changeless, right? You go to ocean and you put a drop of some other color. It might be there for a very small amount of time, but it's all eventually going to get mixed into the ocean, right? So similarly, he says you are changeless. You cannot be, your form cannot be changed. And then he says you are the source of unlimited bliss, which always keeps increasing. So the example I always give is, we all know that if I give you a sweet, you feel happy. And then if I take that sweet away from you, number one, you'll feel sad. That's one part. Second is, first time you eat it, you like it. Second time you eat it, you like it. Third time, your happiness levels start going down. Now it becomes a point of diminishing returns. After which point you start hating it. You don't want it anymore. He says that's not how Brahman is. The bliss you experience, he says, one is it's permanent. And number two, he says you're not going to get bored with it. It's only going to become better and better as you start. So it's kind of an increasing rate. It's going to become better. So that is how you are. You are like a changeless. It's always a point of bliss. And just like how all the pearls are lying in the ocean, he compares and says all these individual jivatma are part of you already. So then we'll see a lot of this which comes later. That's only in Sanatana Dharma. The definition is the creator is outside of the creation as well as inside the creation, right? So the Paramatma is there inside of us, so it's inside, and we all are also inside of the Paramatma, right? And some of that will be very beautifully explained when you come to the Kapilopakyanam in the 15th Dashakam. So that's what he says, we're all part of you, and that's why he says in this case, everything else, he says, are only part incarnations of you. You, the supreme bliss, is always staying there. And even when we come to 37th chapter, right, to Krishna Avataram, it will say that I myself am going to take birth and come. So it is not like there's something called as an Ansha Avataram or part incarnations. All the other avatars are part incarnations, which means the supreme power, the entire power of the Lord has not come. Only a portion of it is coming, right? So that's why, but in Krishna Avataram, that is not the case. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. That's what Bhagavatam says. The Lord himself has come. There is nothing he is left back, right? So that's why all these great things will happen right from when he's a baby. Things will start happening. In Rama, not that, I always prefix this by saying, not that I don't like Rama or any other god or anything of that sort, but in Rama Avataram also, in Rama will go through thing, until he fights and everything. In Krishna Avataram, everything happens like this. Right, there's no wasting time, there is no waiting for everything, there's no rules. The rules of the world don't apply, right? In terms of, the physics don't apply. A lot of things will happen different in Krishna Avataram because you are the Lord himself who has been born. So that's what he's kind of saying here, because of which everything else is only part. Nishkampe Nitya Purne, Niravadi Paramananda Piyusha Rupe, Nirlinanekha Muktavali Subhagatame. So if you want to break that long word, 3 parts, you can break it. Nirlinanekha Muktavali Subhagatame, Nirmala Brahma Sindhau. Nishkampe Nityapurne Niravadi Paramananda Piyusha Rupe Nirlinaneka Muktavali Subhagatame Nirmala Brahma Sindhau.
Nishkampe Nityapurne Niravadhi Paramananda Piyusha Rupe Nirlinaneka Muktavali Subhagatame Nirmala Brahma Sindhau. Nishkampe Nityapurne Niravadhi Paramananda Piyusha Rupe Nirlinaneka Muktavali Subhagatame Nirmala Brahma Sindhau.
Nishkampe Nityapurne Niravadi Paramananda Piyusha Rupe Nirlinanega Muktavali Subhagatame Nirmala Brahma Siddhau. Nishkampe Nityapurne Niravadi Paramananda Piyusha Rupe Nirlinanega Muktavali Subhagatame Nirmala Brahma Sindhau.
Kallo Lolasa, that is one word, because Kalla Ullasa, U and all is coming. So Kallo Lolasa Tulyam Kalu Vimalataram, Satvamahus Tadatma, Kasmano Nishkalas Tvam Sakala Iti. After that vacha, there is a is. So you remove that is, you put a visarga and a comma. So it becomes Sakala Iti Vachaha, and then a comma. Tvat kalasveva bhuman. Kalholnollásatulyam khalu vimalataram sattvamáhustadatma kasmanno nishkalastvam sakala iti vachaha tvatkalasveva bhuman.
कल्लोल्लोलासतुल्यं खलु विमलतरं सत्त्वमाहुस्तदात्मा कस्मान्नो निष्कलस्त्वं सकल इति वचः त्वत्कलास्वेव भूमन्.
Raman, the third line after Vimalataram, there is a pause, okay?
Okay. कल्लोल्लोलासतुल्यं खलु विमलतरं सत्त्वमाहुस्तदात्मा कस्मान्नो निष्कलस्त्वं सकल इति वचः त्वत्कलास्वेव भूमन्.
कल्लोलोलासतुल्यं खलु विमलधरं सत्त्वमाहुस्तथात्मा कस्मान्तो निष्कलस्त्वं सकल इति वचः त्वत्कलास्येव भूमन्.
Shanti, and the small the tune and the Kalu Vimalataram comma is coming, right? So I think the way you were saying was you were ending that portion as if it's like the end of the line.
Okay.
Okay, so Kalho Lollasatulyam Kalu Vimalataram Sattwamahustadatma. So that way it'll end there.
Okay.
Just type and go anyway.
Kallolollasatulyam khalu vimaladaram sattwamahustadatma kasmanto nishkalastvam sakala idi vachah tvatkalaseva bhuman.
Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. So we'll end the class here today. And like we said, we'll chant the Sandra Nandava, the first stanza at the end of every class, and Kayena Vacha at the end. Okay. Sandranandhavabodhatmakamanupamitam kaladeshavadebhyam nirmuktam nityamuktam nigamashatasahasrena nirbhasyamanam aspashtam drishtamatre punarurupurushartatmakam brahmatattvam tattavad bhati sakshat gurupavanapure hanta bhagyam janana. काहेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना भा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you, everyone. If anyone has any questions, please put it in the group. I'll answer. And then we'll meet next Sunday. We'll start sharp at 7:30. We'll do the same Dhyana Slokam. And then we'll start with the next. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Rajesh,
Thank you so
thank
much.
you.